When you grow up emotionally neglected, it's not uncommon that you'll be drawn to people who neglect you and dismiss your feelings just like your parents did about all kinds of things. Now, in today's video, we're going to look at a relationship where a woman is getting her feelings about her boyfriend's parents being sexually off. That he's dismissing her on this, and she needs to know whether this relationship can possibly work under the circumstances. I'll call her Rochelle, and she writes, "Dear Fairy, I'm a 38-year-old woman who's been in a relationship for a year and a half with a guy my age. He's very affectionate, intelligent, and funny, but he's not a very good listener. He's easily distracted, is very disorganized, and can throw tantrums over small things, like not remembering where he parked the car." All right, I've got my fairy pencil. I'm going to circle things I want to come back to on a second reading, but let's see what's going on in Rochelle's life here. She says, "When we fight, and lately we fight often, he tends to dismiss me. One topic we've been arguing about is my relationship with his family. My question to you is, if my trauma is making me act selfishly in that matter, or if he is being inflexible and selfish himself. His parents live in a city a few hours away from the major city where we both live. I disliked them since the first time they came to visit. His father appeared joyous and very friendly at first, but through the first encounter, I noticed that he's also very irritable, verbose, and that he lacks listening skills, and that he has no filter. Every time we meet, he shares sexual anecdotes, like how an energy drink he's been drinking turns him on, or how his current partner had a slut phase when she was young. I actually doubt that. She's a very shy woman who hasn't left the house in years. He can also have very brief but intense outbursts of anger. Once he yelled at his eldest son over the seating arrangement at the table. The mother is also verbose and dramatic. I've only seen her a couple of times, but she's shared with me very intense personal stories. With neither of them is there a possibility of having a fluid conversation. It seems like they're only capable of listening if you are loud and dramatic, and that's not my nature. Even though my partner has a distant and sometimes tense relationship with them because of their ways, and also because they neglected him when he was a child, his father left and couldn't provide economically, and they both were affectionate, but very emotionally absent. My boyfriend has little empathy regarding how nervous I get around his parents. Because yes, I get really nervous. I don't say much while they're present, but he says I often look terrified. We've talked about it several times, and when we do, I try to speak delicately, but as I feel dismissed, I usually end up being blunt, saying things like, I think his father is selfish. I then apologize, and he accuses me of being cold and unsupportive and of judging his family harshly. One time, he said that it was weird that I dislike his dad's personality, that he's usually well-liked and has many friends. I met one of them. He was an alcoholic who made sexist comments. In another occasion, when I told him, distressed, that his mother had recounted in great detail an episode of incest she witnessed some years ago between her mother-in-law and her sister-in-law, so mother and daughter, he told me that the thing is, I only feel comfortable talking about the weather. For this, he apologized later. I come from a much more structured, albeit dysfunctional family. We were middle class, and there was a lot of support regarding my studies and hobbies, though some emotional stability was lacking. Sometimes my mother claims to be on the autism spectrum. She's never been diagnosed, but it seems possible to me that she has some kind of condition. She's self-absorbed, unstable, impulsive, has literal thinking, and sometimes rather delusional ideas. My father is an affectionate but very absent man who never set limits when she had one of her outbursts. Neither of them ever found out that two of their relatives molested me. I now see these were weird people, also the self-centered, verbose, oversharing type, plus heavy alcohol and drug users. My parents never sensed the danger. Now we get along pretty well from a distance. They also live far away. I visit now and then, and it's rather peaceful. Anyway, the scars show, even when I have worked a lot on myself with therapy and investigation, and your videos have been helpful, Anna. Among other symptoms, it still happens that disconnected, irritable people who monologue and share intimate details dysregulate me. I feel really anxious and sad around them, and it sometimes takes me days to recover. Considering all that, do you think my trauma is making me exaggerate my perception toward my partner's family? And in consequence, is it making me selfish? I've told him that I want to support him so he feels as comfortable as possible when they visit, but that I need to act as a team and that he should also look out for me. That if his father has, for example, an outburst of anger or says something inappropriate, my boyfriend should understand that I might get nervous and need some kind of reassurance afterwards, like a word of comfort or something. In a not so direct manner, I think I'm asking him to distance himself from his family's ways by acknowledging that they're not healthy. Because I really think they're not. There are times when my boyfriend acknowledges that they are difficult people and also that I don't choose my reactions towards them. But usually, he simply says that I'm exaggerating and that I'm making it all about myself. Am I? For this and other reasons, I'm beginning to feel really lonely in the relationship and have been considering ending it. Thanks very much. From Rochelle. Okay, wow, tough situation. I hear you, Rochelle. So let me go through and see what you told me and see if we can find a solution for you here. All right, you like this guy. He's your age. You guys are 38. He's intelligent. He's funny, but he's not a very good listener. And he's easily distracted. He's very disorganized and can throw tantrums over small things like not remembering where he parked the car. All right, I can't help but notice, Rochelle, he sounds a little bit similar to the parents that you don't like. Maybe he's not sexually off, the tantrums and not a good listener. And you said when we fight, and lately we fight often, he tends to dismiss me. All right, so that's hard. One topic you've been arguing about is your relationship with his family. And here's the thing, you don't like his family. And I understand why, I get it. I don't think you're being unreasonable in not liking them. It's like, what do you do with that? They live a few hours away. You always dislike them. His father appeared joyous and very friendly at first, but then you notice that he's also very irritable, verbose, talks a lot, doesn't listen, and he has no filter. Every time you meet, he shares sexual anecdotes. And this is what my friend, the YouTuber Patrick Tian, calls being sexually off. And it's a very subtle kind of manipulation or trauma on people, especially for children. You're not a child, but you are talking about you were around people who were like this as a kid. So it's extra triggering. And honestly, yeah, it doesn't have to be a trauma to be inappropriate and awkward and uncomfortable and something that a person doesn't want to put up with. I hear you on this one. He also shares sexual anecdotes like how an energy drink he's been drinking turns him on, or how his current partner had a slut phase when she was young. So yeah, I totally know the type you're talking about, and it's a very self-centered thing, and they're, I don't know, trying to get attention. And I think it might have to do with you could describe it as narcissistic behavior. But it also seems like I'm not trying to in any way imply that people who are neuroatypical are all like this. They're not. But this thing where he doesn't seem to get how his effect on other people just seems like he's not connected. He's just not connected, he doesn't care about it. Okay, narcissistic. Yeah, all right, let's just call it. She's a shy woman. And then he has these brief and intense outbursts of anger and yells about seating arrangements. Yeah. And the mother is verbose and dramatic, and you've only seen her a couple times, but she told you this incest story that's pretty harsh. And yeah, that's a lot to disclose to people. So there's a similar trait there. And you think that they don't listen to anybody unless they're loud and dramatic. But yeah, it's not your nature, and I don't know if you did that. I don't know. They're just not capable of focusing on other people or focusing on the occasion of meeting their son's partner. Like, actually, good parenting of an adult child is when you meet their partner, you kind of use a little bit of decorum and sensitivity and curiosity about that other person. So they're pretty drawn into themselves. So he has a distant and sometimes tense relationship with them. Yeah, okay. So you've noticed, he notices that they're kind of messed up. He doesn't like it when you say it. And I think this is not uncommon in families. Like sometimes we want to be able to criticize our family members, but when other people do it, it makes us feel defensive. There is some sort of natural way that we identify with them and feel as if we're being criticized. I think it's common in a lot of people that we're intolerant when other people say the very same criticisms that we feel like we can say. I'm not saying it's good, but I'm saying it's common. Right? And then you get really nervous. And I don't blame you. It sounds like a nerve-wracking situation where that's not really comfortable for you. And especially because you don't trust that your boyfriend's got your back here. So you're asking him very well, very clearly, which is good work on your part, to just say, I would like you to check in with me when there's an outburst or a sexually off comment. Could you check in with me and just kind of connect with me? That's not too much to ask, but that's not something he feels he can or should do, I guess. You said you try to speak delicately, but because when you talk about it, you're already kind of feeling distressed, it comes out blunt, and you say things like his father is selfish. Yeah, I understand that. And then you apologize, and he accuses you of being cold and unsupportive and of judging his family harshly. So, yeah, this is a tough situation because surely he can recognize that his parents would probably make anyone uncomfortable. So one time he said it's weird that you dislike his dad's personality because other people like him. All right, let's just give him the benefit of the doubt. So let's just say other people like his dad, but you don't. It could be that if liking his dad is a requirement of this relationship and it's not your nature, the relationship isn't a good fit. And I do see a little bit of evidence here that it's just not a good fit. And maybe his dad's personality is fine for him, and maybe in theory some of his friends would be fine. But I don't think that you should try to pretend and crap fit your feelings, to fit yourself to accommodate something that just feels totally offensive to you. I don't think you should have to. I totally get, though, when we meet other people's parents, when we meet a partner's parents, we have to use a bit of decorum too and try to just give them the benefit of the doubt, and they're the elders and all that, except they kind of, when people break the rules are not there anymore. So you told him about the story his mother said, and then he accused you, oh, you're only comfortable talking about the weather. So to him, it feels like people are just being real. It sounds like a culture clash, honestly. I think you're in a different continent than me, but for us, it would be, so my mom's from Brooklyn, and my husband is from the north of England, and they are very different cultures about how open you should be with other people and how crude and how explicit you should be around other people. And I have had to kind of come to the middle with my husband, where he has to be more tolerant of me, and I have to be like a little bit more careful about what I say, because Brooklyn style talking is a bit more like boisterous and open. And I've learned I can do that, but don't bring him into it. Don't just tell people about him. So I try to be very respectful of that. So you talked about your parents and how they didn't protect you from some relatives who were kind of similar to your boyfriend's parents. So that doesn't mean that you're crazy, that there's a link there. It just means, no wonder you have a trigger there. And if you didn't have a trigger from childhood, it's still possible you would find these parents obnoxious and uncomfortable, and you don't like them. But because there's a trigger there, you kind of go into all this self-doubt. Yeah, I know how it is. When something reminds you of being a helpless little kid, it can make you feel more helpless than you really are. And there are technically graceful ways to set boundaries with people, to say in the most polite way. It's like, oh, Jim, when you go here, I go in the other room. So how's the chicken coming in the oven? And, some people have that incredible presence of mind to do that. It would be nice. I don't blame you if you don't, especially with that trigger there. If you want this relationship to work, if that's your goal, I would say start working on your triggers so that you can be graceful and set boundaries and not subject yourself to all the weirdness or just sit there like shut down and nervous and scared to express yourself. To go ahead and express yourself. If they can be boisterous, well, you can too. If you're not all triggered, sometimes you can come out as humorous or, gently setting a boundary rather than coming off like you were sort of criticizing yourself, and I'm going to take you at face value, that it comes out too blunt, too harsh, not graceful. So there's a possible scenario where you can put up with it. But yeah, you've worked a lot on yourself. And irritable people who monologue and share intimate details, you said dysregulate me. And I'm going to be even more specific. They trigger dysregulation in you. Their behavior is a trigger for you that sets off dysregulation. It's helpful no matter what your goal is to deal with the situation, to just recognize like the trigger is in you. The lack of boundaries is what's missing in you. And either you're forcing yourself to make nice with this stuff, or you're getting all quiet, but you feel anxious and sad, and it takes days to recover. See, that's what I think is often the sign that something is just not good for you. It's just not good for you. So I don't think you're exaggerating your perception, and I don't think what you're asking for in terms of support to help you feel more comfortable during the visit, I don't think that's inappropriate, but I tend to think that even if he were to like touch your shoulder and go, I know this is weird, honey, but it's just for this evening. I hope it's okay. If he just said something like that, it probably still wouldn't make it okay for you, The thing that concerns me about the boyfriend here is just that he's dismissive and he sort of blames you, and he doesn't really get it. Now, whether you're in the right or in the wrong, it would be very hard to have a long-term relationship with somebody who dismissed what made you feel so uncomfortable that you were dysregulated for days. That doesn't mean they're responsible to fix you, but it's that dismissive attitude rather than a sort of supportive and understanding attitude, because you're not sitting here saying, I take no responsibility for how I take this. You're working on yourself. I think that a partner who works on themselves gets a lot of space, gets a lot of latitude to get a little support, to keep working on themselves while we acknowledge that some circumstances are icky. So I don't know. I have a feeling this boyfriend may not be the one for you. He's got characteristics that trigger you. Isn't that funny how we end up with people who have the very characteristics that we don't like? So this may not be the long-term one, but for as long as you want to try to give the relationship a chance, I'd say work on calming your triggers. And how you can do that is with using my daily practice techniques, if you like, to get the thoughts and feelings out. It can help take that extra charge off of them so you can see your thoughts and feelings for what they are. That doesn't mean you make them go away or deny them or try to make them wrong. It's you can just see them for what they are. They're not so charged. So that can be helpful. I just recommend to anybody watching, do check out my daily practice. And if you'd like a reality check on what kind of person is partner material and how does this guy measure up, I've got a free download for you. You can click on it right here, and I will see you very soon.